Well, hello. Welcome back to Walking the Talk, the sermon podcast of Creekside Community Church in San Leandro, California, where we help you to walk out what we talked about on Sunday. My name is Jeff Bruce. I'm one of the pastors here. Pretty sure I just got the intro wrong, but that's okay. I don't think we teach you to walk out, but
we're going to fix that.
All right, that's good. But I am here with the usual cast of characters. John Bruce, my dad, a pastor. Max Butler, my brother in Christ, also a pastor. Guys, how you doing?
Great.
Yeah?
Other than my back, but who am I to lament the foilables of old age?
Yeah. Max and I just got back from the men's retreat, so...
Full retreat from the retreat.
You'd think the word retreat would mean rest, but boy, does it not. No. And, I don't know if this is the appropriate place to do this, but Max's son, Gil, great guy, dirty ultimate Frisbee player. Let me just tell you.
I tried to take Jake out too.
Oh my gosh. I was going for a disc and my leg was out and Gil just, in the malice and evil intent of his heart, just nailed me and injured an old man. And no, he was definitely going for the disc. And I foolishly stuck out my leg to block him as he was going for the disc. And learn an important lesson. Don't stick your leg out when Gil is coming for the disc. When the train is coming, the train ain't going to stop. Yeah. That leg ain't going to stop the train. So that's what I learned. So the funniest part of the men's retreat is the only two injuries were me and my son.
You were those guys.
Leading by example.
We were leading by example. You know, we leave it on the field. And that's what we did.
Have you recovered fully? Or
yeah, I'm fine.
Do you need to talk to my lawyer? Or
No. Gil's a great dude. He didn't do anything wrong. I'm feeling okay. I'm healing like the 40-plus-year-old that I am, slowly but surely. So it's all
in a month. You'll feel great.
Yeah, exactly. It was good. All right. Well, we are looking at a few more character qualifications in Paul's list for leaders in 1 Timothy 3. And we're going to start with the husband of one wife. Paul says an overseer must be the husband of one wife. Kyle talked about this a few weeks ago, and it is striking that Paul says a leader must be above reproach, and then immediately says the husband of one wife. So in Paul's mind, this was critical for leadership.
Absolutely. No, I think Kyle did a great job of just defining marriage and what marriage is. And it really is a commitment of two people to each other under God's authority. And so how a person treats his wife or her husband is a clear indication of their character.
Yeah. And I think it's worth probing a little more into what it means to be the husband of one wife and why Paul would list that as the first qualification after above reproach. Because there's a number of different ways you could take that. You could say, well, that means an overseer must be married. And that seems to be the teaching of the Orthodox Church on this. But that doesn't seem to be Paul's emphasis here. It's not the husband of one wife. It's the husband of one wife is Paul's emphasis here. And also, Paul and Timothy clearly weren't married. And so I think you could say marriage is normative for leaders, but it's not obligatory. And other people would say, well, this means that an overseer can only be married once, that they must not be remarried, either after a divorce or a death of the spouse. But the problem with that is there are biblical grounds for divorce and biblical grounds for remarriage. And so it would be weird for you to pursue a biblical ground for something and then have that disqualify you from leadership, right?
Mm-hmm.
That idea that you could only be married once.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here.
Well, yeah.
I'd be disqualified.
Otherwise, the death of a spouse could disqualify you from leadership.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. And so if that was the focus once, there would have been a much clearer way for Paul to say that. It's also interesting that in 1 Corinthians 5:14, Paul encourages younger widows to marry, which would seem improbable if he viewed remarriage in such a negative light.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think for that reason, that's an unlikely interpretation as well. Now, clearly there are biblical, the issue of divorce can impact our view of who should be qualified for leadership. But assuming someone has biblical grounds for divorce and remarriage, you wouldn't assume that that would be disqualifying based on what Paul says. So those are two views that are unlikely. A third view would be an overseer must not practice polygamy, only one wife at a time rather than only married once. And that's Calvin's view. That's Grudem's view. And the phrase certainly implies that an overseer must be monogamous, right? I mean, that's obvious. It rules out polygamy. The question is Paul's focus polygamy? And I don't think it is. And one of the reasons is Paul uses a similar phrase in 1 Timothy 5:9, where Paul talks about the qualifications for widows and which widows should receive help from the church. And one of his stipulations is that the widow must be or must have been the wife of one husband. And he uses exactly the same phrase, just a mirror image, right? Husband of one wife, wife of one husband. And since, wives having multiple husbands wasn't an issue at that time, presumably the issue in the reverse is true as well, that it's not husband of one wife. Whatever he means by that, he means the same kind of thing that he means in 1 Timothy 5. And so he's talking about something else as the emphasis.
Yeah, and I think if I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what he says there is you must be a one-woman man.
Yes.
So that would take out not only more wives, but more sexual companions.
Yes.
Like slaves or concubines or all, which were common practices back then.
Yeah.
So he's saying, whether it be man or woman, you need to be committed to one mate, one mate only.
Right.
Obviously at a time, but that, I think that's his emphasis.
It's assumed that would be true.
Yeah.
That you're not polygamous or polyandrous or whatever poly you want to throw in there. But I think it's a higher standard than that. One woman man, one man woman. The idea is something more like, and this I think gets to the biblical or the right exegetical view, which be something like holistic faithfulness to your current spouse. That you are modeling faithfulness. And in that culture, that would have been a radical thing because it was quite permissible for, as you said, men to sleep around.
Yeah.
That was perfectly normal. Demosthenes, I don't know who he was exactly, but he says this in one of his orations: mistresses we keep for the sake of pleasure, concubines for the daily care of the body, but wives to bear us legitimate children. So there you go. You need a wife to have legitimate children, but so long as you're not sleeping with another man's wife, all's fair.
Yeah. Demosthenes was a popular man.
Well, it was certainly expressing a popular sentiment at that time. There was a double standard around sex.
Yeah.
And really, it's the Christian sexual ethic that was the first sexual revolution.
Oh, yeah.
In expecting men to exhibit the kind of chastity that women were expected to exhibit as well.
Right.
And to have truly monogamous relationships.
Right.
But I think it goes even deeper than sex. I think it gets to this whole idea of a one flesh union that Paul was talking about. And really that the two become one in marriage in every way.
Yeah.
And that should be evident in a leader, whether it's an elder, a deacon, or a deaconess.
Right. Right. No, that would be an automatic disqualifier if that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I think the question is, why can't a leader be awesome at everything in his life and not awesome at marriage? Does that make sense? Why would marriage have that much of a make or break influence in terms of a qualification?
Do you think that later on in this passage, Paul says he must be a good manager of his household, keeping his children under control with all dignity? For if a man does not know how to manage his household, how will he manage the household of God? And so your marriage and extension, your family is your first priority.
Yeah.
And so you got to get that right before you're qualified to lead anybody else.
Yeah.
And, history is replete with examples of men who failed in that, who had wonderful ministries and yet completely neglected their families.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say they were disqualified because of that.
Yeah, and I think it's also that marriage is the picture of marriage is Christ's union with the church, and that symbol of us being faithful. I mean, God uses adultery throughout Scripture as a picture of lack of faith through Israel. They were always an adulterous nation, and out through Proverbs, the adulterous woman, the choice between the wife of your youth and lady wisdom and the adulteress. Those are the portraits that are portrayed throughout. So there's something about that picture of marriage being essential to understanding our relationship with Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Kyle did a good job of bringing out those ideas of love, unity, and permanence.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
As really foundational to what marriage is, and then reflecting something of who God is, the love, unity, and permanence within God, and that God expresses toward us and wants from us. And so if leaders aren't conveying that, they're misrepresenting God.
Yeah.
And I think too, it's very destabilizing for the church as well, because your marriage is a mirror. It's a mirror of who you are. And it's not that your spouse's sin is completely your responsibility, but your sin and its impact will most clearly be seen in your relationship with your spouse.
Yeah.
And so if that relationship is healthy and thriving, and your spouse is joyful and regards you and serves with you, and you have the same theological commitments and the same values and the same priorities, and you're pulling in the same direction and you're serving each other, that's a great indication that you are qualified.
Yeah.
That you really are laying down your life. And just as a shepherd needs to lay down their life, you do it first in the way that you serve and lead at home. And I think that's why Paul is so adamant that you don't bypass that. And a culture that really didn't value marriage in certain ways, to say, no. In Scripture, this is so critical.
Yeah. Which I think practically gives a wife veto power over the appointment of an elder.
Yeah.
That if his wife is not wholly behind this decision by the church ought to abandon that decision.
Right.
Because it's clear that he's not leading his family.
Yeah, well, even if her reason were illegitimate,
Yeah.
it's still a red flag, because you go, well, you guys aren't aligned.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason you're not aligned. And you're not going to be aligned when you're going into leadership.
Yeah.
And so until you are, it's not a good season for you to lead.
Yeah. No, I've made that mistake many times. I remember working with one guy, and until his wife said, "I don't know why you're meeting with him. He's a mess," And I didn't have that impression at all. I thought he was a great guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, it's really good. So practically, it means, I think, for anyone aspiring to a position of spiritual influence, if you're married, it means to prioritize that relationship.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And one thing I found just in the season that we're in, which I think is busy, I think it's going to get busier, but, Kashal and I joke about not just becoming a good business partnership.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that we feel right now. We're not the Bruce Klopfenstein firm, that just gets a lot done, because inevitably this is just a season of our lives when we're so busy with kids, and we need a marriage to fuel everything we're doing.
Yeah.
And a real love and unity and permanence in everything we're doing. And I think really practically what it means is we got to spend 20 or 30 minutes a day just talking to each other.
Yeah.
That's the most basic thing. We're just talking, decompressing. How was your day? How are things going? Keeping our friendship going every day, and not treating it like, oh, well, we're fine, so that's the thing we can neglect because it's fine. No, it's actually the thing that we should water every day.
Well, on the precipice of a empty nest, I can tell you that if I've always had that notion that if our friendship is not intact, if our relationship is not, if we're just doing it for the kids, then it's not, it's not a healthy relationship. And then when the kids are gone, that you've seen that happen in so many marriages, like everybody held it together for the kids. And then once the kids are gone there, but I mean, it's truly,
Yeah. And what the kids need is the symbol of love, unity, permanence, because God shows love unity, permanence. And so realizing that, it seems like our priority is the kids versus based on our time and our energy, but what the kids need is that foundation of our union that gives them such peace of mind.
Yeah, I remember hearing years ago that a child's sense of security is based far more on how his parents treat each other than how they treat him.
Mm-hmm.
And because that's what gives them a real sense that everything's good, everything's fine. I may be mad at my dad right now, but I know my dad loves my mom and is committed to my mom.
Yeah, and by extension, he loves me.
Yeah, and therefore he loves me. Yeah, exactly. And I think, too, it's not just keeping your relationship with each other fresh, but really it's protective.
Yes.
Because your wife knows you better than anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And she can point out things in your life that watch out for this.
Mm-hmm.
Is that really what you want? Is that really your motive there? What's the Lord saying to you about this? That's, I think, one of the keys. It really will. A healthy marriage really protects you from so many evils.
Mm-hmm.
And she's not contentious just because she doesn't praise you for everything you do.
You don't need to be applauded for taking out the garbage, right? And that's not to say, I think a wife should have great regard for her husband and speak highly of him and affirm him and respect him. But it's also to say that she has insight into your character that no one else has.
Yeah.
And so, just because she's disagreeing with you about something doesn't mean she's contentious.
Yeah, exactly.
So by faith, you can say, all right, Lord,
she's right.
Maybe, or maybe she's worth listening to because of her place in my life.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
the heart of her husband trusts her. He will have no lack of gain.
Yeah.
He who finds a wife finds a good thing. So this woman, assuming she's a godly woman, this is the personification of wisdom in my life. This is a person who can help me steer the right path.
It's interesting. I heard a pastor I used to listen to on the radio say this, that he gave his wife veto power on any relationship in their life.
Yeah.
And I took that to heart, and I thought, I think I'm going to do that. And so basically, Rachel has veto power on anything in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I can say like anything that's here that you see that causes you to stumble or or just have concern. Yeah. Just, I grant you that, and I will honor that. And the thing is I trust her so much that I just don't feel like she's going to say, oh, you can't do this, that. I mean, she would use that power very sparingly. And when it does come up, I will, regard that very seriously. So.
Yeah. And I would say that is only possible when you have deep years of trust to know that this person is for my good at all times. They're not trying to control me. They're not just trying to steer me because they want something from me. They actually want things for me.
Yeah.
And that again gets to just the enormous power of marriage. I remember the meaning of marriage, the Keller's talking about this. Just you're giving someone power in your life that's unlike any other relationship with marriage, for good or ill. And so that's why trust is so central to the relationship itself. And if you can be trustworthy in a marriage, it's a great sign that you're going to be trustworthy with a leadership position.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's also that I do it because I know that God has brought her into my life. I do it almost as if God is speaking directly to me. She is the prophetess, as if God is speaking directly to me through her, because I trust that she's seeking God. I see that, and it goes both ways. She trusts me more that she sees that I'm seeking God, and vice versa.
Yeah, it's good. Good. Well, should we talk about discipline now? Because that's the next thing that
I guess so.
I'd rather take a nap or watch TV. Yeah. Well, Paul says a number of things about discipline. After talking about being the husband of one wife, he says that an overseer must be sober-minded, self-controlled, respectable, not a drunkard. And then of deacons, he says they must be dignified, not addicted to much wine. And then of deaconesses, he speaks of them being dignified, sober-minded. So that constellation of terms, dignified, sober-minded, disciplined, and not an addict, which feels very modern, not addicted, comes up in his description of all three positions, those constellation of terms. So clearly, self-control is critical to being a leader.
Yeah.
And you did a great job of overviewing it. I listened to the talk today and I thought, this is a great overview of discipline. It's also a great overview of Habit Helps, which is the podcast we had before this. And so, Yeah,
I think that the ability, a leader in the church, every leader in the church must be able to say no to themselves. Yeah. Must be able to put other things before their own pleasure, their own advantage, or anything like that. Or you can't be a leader. Yeah, because you're called to be a servant, and you have to be able to control yourself in order to serve others. The thing that struck me in this is when Paul said this, the Stoics had such an influence over society. And of course, their whole thing was discipline and controlling yourself, controlling your passions and your greed and your rage and all these things, which they admitted was very difficult, but it really elevated self-control and discipline in the society. So when Paul says everybody should be disciplined, I think most people in the church said, yeah, check. We need to do that. Our leaders must be disciplined. I think in our culture, it's more of a challenge because we live in a culture which I think can see discipline as repressive. Yeah. Because our culture doesn't question your desires. Your desires might be tended by sin or anything like that. That happiness comes from doing what you want to do, be expressing who you are, the real self, rather than repressing those things. And then on top of that, even in the contemporary church today, I think people see discipline as unnecessary. Because if Jesus lives in me, and I have all his power, he'll just make me what he wants to be. If I, focus on information, just continue to read the Bible, and then I'll become what he wants me to be. Or inspiration, if I just can get my heart in such a state through worship and stuff, I'll naturally obey God. Information and inspiration are important, they're key, they're necessary, but they're not sufficient. And that's why Paul says, discipline yourself for godliness in 1 Timothy 4.
Jonathan Grant wrote a great book about this and its relation to sexuality with self-control, but he talks about the age of authenticity. And he says, modern authenticity encourages us to create our own beliefs and morality, the only rule being that they must resonate with who we feel we really are. The worst thing we can do is to conform to some moral code that is imposed on us from the outside by society, our parents, the church, or whoever else. It is deemed to be self-evident that any such imposition would undermine our unique identity.
Yeah, that's the idea. And seeing yourself as anything I want is good, rather than what the Bible would say is all of our desires and ambitions have been tinted with sin. And so only God can tell us who we are, because he created us, and how to become the person he wants us to be. So what that means practically is stuff that feel good and natural to me now could be leading me to destruction and probably are. And that's why I need to come to him and let him change me. And that's done through disciplining yourself.
Yeah, I think just bringing up that point of just saying no is such a great point. And it just looks different in everybody's life, and they have to figure out what they need to say no to. But I mean, generally it involves, something to do with the flesh. It involves something to do with a habit of some sort, or is just being aware. I think a good idea is to figure out like a habit analysis, just like write down what you do for a week, just see what you do. Just try to do this thing where you see what you've done in a week, just see that what time you go to bed, what time you brush your teeth, all these different things that you do, and try to just scientifically see what you do and see which of it's coming from, a discipline, or if it's just a habit, something that you do.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you can't do it because you'll if you start to analyze yourself, you'll change your behavior.
It's good.
You'll lie to yourself.
Yeah. I think it's saying no is so critical though, because if you say that myself can lead me to joy and I've just got to find out my story, my life, my thing, well, you're probably not going to choose like obscurity, pain, things that create more friction in your life. You're going to opt for, you're going to optimize your life for comfort. That's what authenticity actually means, is optimizing your life for comfort and coping, not with dealing with reality. And that's a sure path to misery.
Yeah. I think it ignores the fact that we have a body.
Right.
And our body is a creature of habits. So what feels natural and good to us is just what's habitual.
Right.
And who knows how those habits were formed.
Yeah.
And most of them are bad habits because we live so many years under the control of our flesh. So we live under the control of sin, and then we wonder why living righteously doesn't feel natural. Well, because of our body. Right. Our body has to be trained. We have to practice doing things right before it feels natural.
Yeah.
And that time between the time you know what's right and the time you can automatically do what's right in the setting, there's a time for that right. You've got to practice doing it correctly according to the Bible so it can become natural.
It's also a great encouragement that growth is going to be slow because building new habits takes time.
Yeah.
And so just because you've got a lot of information and inspiration, it takes the third eye iteration.
Yeah.
To really get competent at something, or for something to feel natural in your body.
Yeah.
To do it.
Yeah.
One practice I've found helpful is to just take any habit, whether you view it as good, bad, or indifferent, really the bad or indifferent ones, and just try to interrupt it and really challenge, like, why do I do that thing? And so just to give an example, like last night I had to go pick up some meds for Omari over at Children's, and I know it's going to be about 40 minutes of driving, 35 minutes of driving. And so I thought, like, I'm not going to turn on a podcast. I'm just going to drive in silence there and back, just to see if I can calm my mind and quiet it and try to pray. And it was so hard.
Yeah.
So hard at the end of the day. I was so tired. But it showed me how much I am addicted to noise, distraction, particularly at certain parts of the day, to sort of cope with anxiety or boredom or whatever. And just that practice of introducing something new was so good, because it felt really unnatural, but it showed me how natural this other thing is, which could be good, bad, good, or indifferent. But I tend to fill my life with noise. And that's something that I'm really trying to challenge right now.
Yeah. I had a similar experience with that. Yeah. Just growing up, always listening to the radio, just reaching for the dial, just particularly when you're in the car.
Yep.
I mean, I still do it. And I mean, I still have certain times, but I have been practicing a lot more quietness, particularly in the morning, when I'm tempted to just kind of turn a bunch of noise on.
Yep. But it's good.
Yeah. It just goes to show that what you're used to is what feels good.
Exactly.
It's not that it's good. It's just what you're used to.
Yeah.
And look at how most people age, which is on my mind, and what they're used to is killing them. No motion, no activity, no intellectual stimulation, no, the things that you have to work at to keep thriving, they don't come natural. You've got to push yourself on those things, though you'll be glad you did after you do them.
Yeah.
Right.
Another thing I would add to this is to not, if you're thinking about your self-discipline, to not focus on too many other people. Focus on your own progress, because I think that, if you're comparing, I'm more disciplined than somebody else, or, that's just not a healthy thing. It's better to think like, when I started this habit, was this natural? Of course it wasn't. Now, like years later, can I actually do this? Like your example of like when you started to swim again, you couldn't get across without feeling exhausted. Now you can, it's fine. You know, your body's conditioned, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that for musicians too, you know, I mean, I just try to encourage my students, you know, when you first came to me, you couldn't even, you know, play 2 notes, and now you can play chords fluidly and you can do this, and they think, oh, I'm not good. Well, you're better than you were.
Yeah. You've improved so much.
Yeah. So just kind of keeping track of your own improvement and be encouraged by it, but then also just realize you become what you do.
Yeah.
I think it's a great point, because ego is the enemy of discipline as well. You really have to humble yourself and say, I'm going to assume incompetence in all of these areas of life. And I'm not going to, you know, and this is a conviction for me, I'm not going to pretend that I am more competent than I actually am in these areas, you know? And really, I don't know how to steward my money wisely. I don't know how to manage my body. I don't know how to pray. I don't know how to read my Bible. I don't know how to do all these things, even though they feel like these are the things a mature Christian. Well, what's a mature Christian? It's someone who's maturing. Yeah. It's just someone who's taking and not get so fixated on arrival, or I should be at this point at this time, or this point at that time, or here's who I should be in relationship to other people, because that's just a prison. It's you are who you are today. You're as mature as you're going to be. And wherever you're growing from, it's going to be slow.
Yeah.
So just embrace that, and embrace the grind of slowly becoming like Jesus, and find joy in the fact that Christ is working through you. He is changing you moment by moment, glory to glory. And that helps you to deal with setbacks too. And other things, to just go, that's part of the process. That's normal. I'm still in a fallen body.
Yeah.
I'm not going to bat 1,000. What's another little thing I can do to make progress?
Yeah.
And it's so, I think you're so right in that, Max.
Well, I mean, so the people who I admire the most and who I look up to as my spiritual mentors, if they're still at their great height of spiritual maturity, struggling more, if anything, they see their sin as greater, that just points to me like, oh, there's just, you know, the way up is really the way down in terms of humility and just looking at yourself, knowing yourself. It's like the more you see your sin, the more you see God's grace, and the more you're thankful, and you humble yourself before Him, and you keep on working on it. And that's been my, you know, I've seen that in my mentors, and I've seen that in my life too.
Yeah. I was thinking about just the process of change. We start with unconscious incompetence, that we're incompetent. We don't know it because it just feels natural. And then something happens and you realize that I am really incompetent in that area. I don't know how to do that, which is conscious incompetence.
The worst part of the process.
I've got to change. And then so you begin practicing doing it right. And that's conscious competence. That is, as long as I remember, as long as I think about it, then I'll practice it. But it doesn't come natural. It's just, I just keep on working on this. But eventually, if you keep at it in most areas, you will become unconsciously competent. It's just a habit.
Yeah.
You've developed a good habit there.
Yeah.
And habits are just really character. Character is, if you have lots of good habits, you got good character. If you have lots of bad habits, you got bad character. But you can't change without changing your character.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because eventually what you do becomes who you are.
Yeah.
And so it's just, it flows out of an identity. It flows out of, your character. And so you unconsciously, you don't have to think about it. You do the right thing under pressure.
But character is formed through practice.
Yeah.
That's the point. Character is not just there. It's you've got to consciously practice walking like Jesus in this particular area and just get it granulated down to the most basic details.
Yeah. I think people have dispositions, and they have people. Not all people are equal. Some people they'll have better families, so they'll have better. This is what's natural in the way we relate to
one another. They're not the same starting point.
Yeah, no, everybody doesn't come from the same. You'll have people who come from dysfunctional families, and then they have a lot more work to do. But we in the church should really embrace people's journey and their efforts that are made. C.S. Lewis made a great point about that, you know, the one man who is a grump and is grumbly, you know, for him to just look up and say hi to somebody is such an amazing, you know, step of faith for him, because he's just, you know, internally critical. So, I mean, all of those we just have to celebrate when people are actually doing this. So I think in our discipleship, I've been so encouraged, by the people who discipled me. I think, oh, I'm never going to be, better. But yeah, then they just point out, look, you're just doing better. Keep it up. Keep
Celebrate those wins.
Yeah.
It's huge. Yep.
Yeah.
Good. Well, we could talk a lot about this. That's why we had a whole podcast.
That's right.
It. So
I'll link it in the show.
If you're hungry for more, go back and listen to that. And we had, 50 or 60 episodes there on Habit Helps. And then we ran out of habits and started doing this. So, but it's helpful to talk about this stuff. It's convicting. And thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you again soon.